Welcome, everybody.
Hey, hey. Good boy, Tucker.
Work smarter where you want.
This is learning at its most fun.
Talking about client management. So you guys have kind of picked up on the theme by now. We're kind of working our way through the client life cycle. So we started this morning with sales cycle, right? That first hello to the yes, I want to be a client. Then we tackled onboarding. Yes, I want to be a client to now I actually am a client. And now Curtis and I are going to tell you about that ongoing client management. They're already a client. How do we keep them happy? How do we keep them involved? How do we continue to provide our services with them? So this is,
we don't want things to stop happening with them, right? Like they become a client. Now what? Right. But there's always a continuous cycle. Like what are they talking about? Like in Game of Thrones, like the wheel, like there should be a wheel, even though like that whole show was like, we need to break the wheel. This should be a wheel that's continuously going. Like once they're a client, are they on it? Are they rotating through? Are we keeping them going?
Yeah. So Curtis, one of the most popular wheels that I've seen with offices I work with is this thing called a client review, right? It's some kind of annual, semi-annual, maybe even quarterly thing where we sit down with the client, we review their finances, we ask them questions, and they ask us questions about kind of what does their financial future entail. And so let's start with that. Let's talk about the client review process in Redtail and how we can kind of manage that wheel, if you will. So first thing we got to do is just kind of set the expectation of what we mean when we say the client review process in Redtail. So the client review process in Redtail by no means replaces you, the scheduler, right? We still want to maintain that personal touch. We still want to have that schedule in their position to make sure that the scheduled client reviews are getting accomplished. But what Redtail provides is three things. It lets you know who needs to be scheduled for a review. It lets you know who has a review scheduled and who has completed a review.
Love that. Now, also keep in mind, like we've been talking about for the past 2 days, like categorizing. And so how Austin sort of said, it's like they can be on all different schedules. Each client can be on their own schedule. And if you want to use the category and say that if I label them as a AAA, I'm going to make sure that I'm reminded to reach out every 3 months. If they're a AA, I'm going to go into their record and say they're coming every 6 months. Again, this is all up to you to determine how often you want to be reaching out to schedule a meeting. Yeah. And I think we really need to push and say the reminder is not about the actual scheduling. It's the reminder to schedule something. It's not when actually something is going to happen.
Yeah, I think that's actually probably great material that we could put on our style guide, like we talked about yesterday. And that actually serves as a great transition. So I kind of want to just tackle what's the difference between a reminder versus an activity. So Curtis, can you tell us about reminders?
Yes, reminders are, reoccurring in themselves where it's like, hey, there's a birthday reminder. Everybody has a birthday once a year. It is something that is not actually, it's not, I don't know if the word is tangible, but it's not actually like it needs to be done on this day. It's saying, hey, we need to reach out to do something to get something scheduled. It's if their birthday's coming up, are we going to send them a birthday card? Are we going to give them a phone call? Like that's the thing that we're doing once we see they have a birthday coming up. The same thing sort of happens with client reviews. So it's again, it is just sort of this date that can repeat and push forward every year, every 3 months, however you want it to push forward. But keep in mind, there is no historical information with the reminders. So I can't go back and see how many times was I reminded for this client. It's always about what is the next thing in line. So I always like to tell people when you're dealing with reminders, the goal is to be proactive. You're always looking ahead at the reminders to make sure that you get that done. If their client review comes up, I need to reach out and schedule to get them at an actual meeting where I'll have historical information. Now, there's also not going to be any notification emails that come through. And I know that sounds a little terrifying, but I guarantee it's not. It's okay to not have the actual email notification because that's what the CRM is for. The CRM is telling you all these different little things that you need to remember, but you need to go in and look for them itself. It organizes those reminders instead of just sending emails.
So on the other side of the coin, we have activities, and that's actually where we have more of a concrete item of that particular client review. It goes on our calendar, right? It can be completed. We can add notes to it. We can add an agenda to it. We do have those email notification options if we need for when that item is created. And so these reminders and activities kind of work hand in hand in the client review process. To kind of illustrate this, I want to use an example of kind of construction oriented. Think about when you hang a picture frame on the wall, right? The first thing you have to do is you have to get a general idea of like, where do I want that picture to frame? You might get out your leveling tool and go up to the wall and maybe take out a pencil and say, you know, this probably looks about where I would want to go ahead and hang that picture. And then once we have that determination, we can use that hammer and nail to actually put it into place. It's the same thing with client reviews. We have the reminder that's kind of the estimate, right? We'd like to have it somewhere in this range here. And then the activity is what really drives the nail home and actually makes it into a client review.
I absolutely love that example because it really is that. It's, hey, like we can put like that, hey, the pictures need to be on this line. But once I get to that picture and realize that, hey, this frame is a little bigger than the others, or it's smaller than the others, I need to adjust that specific one, you know, or maybe like where it hangs, like there's so many variables, but at least the line is there to say it should be around this angle. You know, there is a big difference. If Austin and I were both going to go hang up a bunch of picture frames and he got a level and I didn't, I was just going through, I guarantee his pictures are going to look nicer, more organized, because he planned out where they were going to go. Whereas if I'm just jumping in and adding in nails on the wall to hang them up, it could look a mess. Now we can argue that, hey, it's an eclectic decorating style. No. Like, no, hey, we're eclectic with our with our scheduling. The reminder is just saying get it close to here, then the nail is where it actually is.
Okay,
it sort of
so
hits that nail on the head, but
right there you go. So let's talk about setting the reminder. How do we actually put that reminder onto a contact record? So I'm going to slide on over here to Redtail CRM, and we've been working with Al today, onboarding him as a new client. So I'm just going to go to the search options here, type in his name, and we'll go ahead and open up his contact record. Now we see here on the contact details section that he is now an active client. And so we're going to head over to the Know Your Client tab here on the left-hand side to go ahead and put that reminder in place. Now, this could be something that you take care of as part of your onboarding process as well. We talked about that onboarding workflow. This could definitely be something that gets set up ahead of time, so that way you have that sequence in place. But to set it, what we're going to do is we're going to find the client review reminder here, and we're going to choose Edit. So then it's going to ask us, what was the first review date? Now, if we know the very first review date for this person, you can more than likely go ahead and put that in there. Now, I like to just say, this is the first review date in which we're setting up the sequence for. So that might be today. That might have been a month ago when we first onboarded them as a client, right? We're just trying to basically set ourselves a starting point so we can set that recurring pattern.
And that's exactly the word I would use, like starting point. This is the starting point for the reminder. You know, so even if it wasn't their actual first review date, this is what we want the frequency to be based off of. If we're choosing like, hey, it was their first review date was in January, but I just saw them, you know, in February, and I'm basing it still off January, I can be off a little bit, you know? So it really comes down to, do I want to see them every 3 months starting in January? Then yes, I'm going to put that and choose a repeat of 3 months. But keep in mind, you are not required to put the actual first review date, because it might not line up with the current repeating process that they're currently going through. Is that clear, Austin? I feel like I might have like.
I'm tracking with you.
All right, perfect.
All right, so what's
I feel like I restate things too many times to where it gets a little confusing.
All good. All right, so now that we have our first date in place, now we're going to go ahead and set up the recurrence pattern. So Redtail has just a couple of default options that we can choose from here. So for example, if we do our reviews annually, I could just go ahead and choose the annual option and just be done with it. Now, for the most part, you're probably going to want to set up something more specific. So we also have this custom option as well, in case any of these options don't exactly work for what you're looking for. So for example here, if I wanted to set up a semi-annual review for Al, I might choose every 6 months. and choose the day of the month or the fourth Thursday of the month, because the 25th is the fourth Thursday of the month, to go ahead and repeat that on.
Now, I like that option because it gives you, okay, do I want it to fall on the fourth Thursday or on the 25th of the month? The reason that we give those options is, hey, like it could just always be the 25th, but if I don't want the reminder to fall on a weekend,
Or a
I can
holiday.
say the monthly on the fourth Thursday. But in all honesty, and this is just my opinion, to me, a reminder, I don't care if it falls on a Saturday or Sunday because I'm going to be proactive. I'm still going to look ahead. And if the reminder happens to be on a Sunday, it just means I'm going to try and schedule them on Monday. And so, in regards to reminders, that doesn't bother me when it falls on a weekend. But if you really prefer, I don't want a reminder to be on a weekend, then you can definitely use this option.
Yeah. Another strategy would be to use the week feature as well. So when we go here and we change this to weeks, you notice that it allows for us to pick a specific day of the week that we want that review to fall under. So for example, for semi-annual, I would choose 26 weeks. For a quarterly review, I might choose 12 weeks. And then I can choose specifically, I want to be a client review reminded on Mondays.
Mondays of every 12 weeks. Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, even you can, if you still want it to be once a year, you can put every 52 weeks on the Monday, it's up to you. But again, this is the frequency of how often you're going to be reminded to reach out to them to schedule their appointment. This is still just the reminder aspect. We're not putting anything in stone yet.
So Curtis, I'm actually going to set out here for every month. And the reason why is just because when we first onboard a new client, we want to make sure that we're laying down some of those foundational pieces. So I want to meet with them once a month until we get some, financial plans in place and so forth. And then eventually we'll go ahead and expand them out. So I'm going to set out here for just 1 month out. And that's going to set me for the reminder for the next fourth Thursday of April, which happens to be April 22nd. All right. So again, there's that pro tip. Consider adding this as part of your client review, your client onboarding process. So that way it's set and you can make sure that you're being reminded. We don't have to go in after the fact and add it.
Oh, absolutely. And again, that's just like Catherine showed her, in the presentation before. You can go in and add a task to your workflow process to say, add this in.
All right. So now that we have our reminders set up in the database, now we're actually going to go and find them. And like Curtis says, you want to be proactive about these. So what we're going to do is we're going to run a search for the client reviews coming up next month. So we're towards the end of March. So it's time to get ready for the client reviews for April. And so let's use the advanced search tool in Redtail to find who's coming up due. So we'll slide over here and we're going to go to the contacts tab here on the left. We're going to choose advanced search. And then the advanced search that you're going to want to use is type is equal to know your client. The field is going to be next review month. The operand will be equal to, and then I will choose the next month. So know your client, next review month equal to, and then the next month in this case, which is April.
Now, real fast, on top of this, I would say let's add one more layer, because actually at the very first one, you'll see there's a contact in there who's a center of influence. He's not an active client. He's a center of influence. Or maybe I have a status of deceased and I don't remove the reminder. You can narrow it down to also just my active clients.
Yeah.
So you have the ability to narrow it down as far as you want.
So we'll choose the and button to add another layer of criteria. The type in this case will be contact status equal to active client. And so when I click this run button, we should see Bucky disappear. And now we're just down to 5. Because again, Bucky's status was center of influence, not active client. So he's now been excluded from this list.
Now, Austin, this me and you actually talked yesterday where we did in cleaning up chaos, where there are 2 different ways to go about making changes. And really in the same, and it was based off of a search. I really see there's 2 different ways that you can use this page to actually schedule those appointments.
Yeah.
So in the sense of where I think it was your suggestion of clicking on the first one. And then if you click on that very first contact, because we ran a search, we can then tab over to the next contact. But what's great about this, we open up their page and we can see, oh, hey, we need to schedule them as close to that review date. It's the end of March. I want to schedule you as close to April 14th as I can. Yeah. And then from there, if you run it off of a search, then you can hit next and go down and just based off of that review date and add the activity from the contact record.
Yeah, definitely. Now, there's also a way to do this in bulk as well, Curtis. And you and I actually, we kind of split paths here as far as how we like to do it. So I'm going to show kind of my method, and I'll give you guys a hint. It's from one of my favorite tools from this morning, tag groups, and using a tag group, kind of how we used prospects earlier to go ahead and reach out and schedule those people. So I'm going to show my method, and then we'll go ahead and show your method. And Curtis, I think we just learned a valuable lesson here as far as our searches go. It's always smart to hit this save button when you're running these types of searches. So that way, in case you got to click away, you can come back to it easily. And so if we click this save button here, I'm just going to create a quick list for myself, and I'm going to call this client reviews. And the reason I'm not calling this April client reviews is because I can actually use this same search every month and just adjust this month here to reflect whichever month is the preceding month. So again, next month, let's say we're in the middle of April now, I can go over to this little guy up here, choose my quick lists, open up my client reviews quick list, and with little additional effort, I can just go ahead and change this from April to May. And there we go. We got our clients ready to go for May. So always smart when doing searches to save the list, just in case you have to click away, just like I just did there. And you can come back to it quickly. So let's start with my method here. So again, what I like to do is go ahead and select the options here. And I'm going to choose contact options, bulk actions, and I'm going to create a tag group for these contacts. So what I'll do here is I'll say client reviews to be scheduled. And then I'll go ahead and put in the time. So April 2021, and go ahead and create that tag group. And so now when I have some time available in my day and it's time to schedule those client reviews, I can just go ahead and open up that tag group and find those contacts. So here's my tag groups. We're going to find our client reviews to be scheduled for April 21. And then just like I did with prospects, I'm going to take out my phone, right? I'm going to give them a call by hovering over their information. I could also use the action icon to send them an email. Maybe I include, some times that I'm available, or you can even use a scheduling software in this case and embed a link into that email. But then once I go ahead and book that person for their client review, I'm going to use this action arrow here to make an activity for them for their client review. So let's just say hypothetically, I called Al. He says he's available on April 15th. And so I can go ahead and put in the information. Now, we learned in the last session that we have this really cool tool called activity templates that can speed up this process. So here I have a template for client review. I'm going to apply that. And then all I need to do is just adjust the date and time. So we're going to meet on April 15th at 1 o'clock, and we can go ahead and schedule that review. Now, once that activity is scheduled, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take Al and I'm going to take him off of that tag group because he no longer needs to be scheduled, right? He's already scheduled. And so I'll open up the contact record here. I'll come on down to client reviews to be scheduled, and I'll remove that tag. So that way I can just focus on those other 4 contacts that I need to get scheduled for the following month. So that's my method, Curtis. Now you have a different method. So let's go back to that quick list here. And why don't you tell us how you like to tackle scheduling those client reviews?
Definitely. So it's a similar concept, but it's just using different tools in the system. Mm-hmm. The concept itself is I need to know based off of that review reminder, which there's no like physical thing in the system. It's just saying they need to be scheduled around this time. I need to take that and make it actionable in some way. Whereas in your case, you're adding them to a tag group. And then once they're scheduled, you're removing them from a tag group. The most important thing there is the action of removing them from a tag group is implied that they have been scheduled for their review. In my case, I like to really rely heavily on, did I call them to schedule or did I not? Like, to me, like a tag group is like, that's great, but I really need to know, when do I need a specific date? The tag group is just saying, I need to get these done. There's no actual due dates for it. I want an actual due date of when I need to schedule them. So in that case, very similar to how Austin went and took all these contacts where you select all, go to contact options on the right-hand side, and then bulk actions. I'm not going to do a tag group. I'm going to click add activity. So when you click add activity from this page, it will create an individual activity for each selected contact. In this case, I'm just going to name the subject call to schedule client review. And so at this point, I'm going to actually even just make it an all-day event, because I don't know what, I'm not going to say I'm specifically calling them at a certain time. And I'm just going to keep it assigned to today. Like, hey, starting today, I want to start making these phone calls. So that's the day I'm doing it. And we'll make it as a task. That's definitely fine. And let's actually do it about client review notes, because we want it to be connected there. But this is not the client review. So that's why my activity type is not client review. This is a task. This is an item that needs to get done. As soon as we create that activity, instead of having to go and remove them from a tag group, which again is very similar, let's just go to the today page now. When you open up the today page, I'm going to see every single one of those activities right there, all assigned to the different people. So at this point, I can open up the first activity. I can reach out to the contact. I can click on their name and go to the contact. Once I'm in there, I can then actually add, well, we can, oh, perfect. Thank you. You can see their information from here. Then there's also two different thoughts. I could, in a way, just change the date and time of this actual activity and update to their actual client review meeting. Or if I want to make sure that my new client review meeting gets triggered by the automation like we showed off, then I would create a brand new activity and I would complete the current open one. So personally, again, I would complete this activity that's currently open, because, hey, the activity is call to schedule the client review. If I called to schedule it, I'm completing that and doing the next item. So there's a lot of different ways that you can decide that you want to schedule your client reviews. But the most important thing I can say is that what both of these ways share is that we're being proactive. We are looking ahead at everybody who needs to be scheduled for April and finding a way to make sure that we schedule them or not. That is the most important part of this. I've seen offices who use the client reviews, and technically they wait till it shows on, today's reviews. If I'm trying to schedule someone and their reminder says they're supposed to be having a meeting today, but I'm only waiting till today to reach out to schedule it, I'm already behind in the process. So that's why it's so important to be ahead.
Yeah. So if you're tracking with me there, what I did is I went to Andy's record, I added in a client review appointment. And then once I reviewed that, I went ahead and completed that call to schedule, since we already are scheduled in that case. So two different ways, right? You can kind of play around with both, see what's going to work best for you in your process. But either way, again, the take home is to be proactive. All right. So yes, so we covered this here, scheduling the client review. Curtis mentioned that when we're scheduling lots of reviews using automations, it's important to use those templates and to fill out that information, so that way we get that information tracked on. So now we have our client review scheduled. What should we do once we're finished with it? So if we go back here to Redtail, let's just pretend for a second here that it is April 14th. We've just had our review with Andy. Curtis, what do we do next?
What do we do? We got to complete that. We gotta notate what actually happened. So because we had it scheduled, we can open up the activity. Now, because we're in the activity and that linked the actual workflow up at top, which you can see in yellow there, we can actually add that information. But what's most important in this case, again, we have done the client review, is I need to notate what happened. Mm-hmm. And I see a lot of people will add notes into the description section of an activity. I'm never going to say that's wrong, but it's not the intended use of description. Description should be like how we have the agenda for the meeting, what needs to take place during the meeting. So this is essentially the prep for the activity. Whereas anything that happened afterwards, I highly suggest you use the linked notes on the right-hand side. So when we use linked notes, it's going to make a unique time and date stamp for a note, and we can even categorize that note. So this, again, the activity is open. We're going to make a note inside the linked notes and then complete the full activity to say that we are done. Everything at this point for this client review has been done, and we can actually report on it based off of a note as well.
Yeah, so entering those link notes is going to timestamp it right then and there. If we put it here in the description, it's not going to actually time and date stamp that note until we actually complete the activity. So it is recommended, while it's not wrong to put it in your description, it is recommended that you add it to that link notes.
I even talk to a lot of offices who say, hey, like in the description, we want a way for a keyboard shortcut to put our initials and date and timestamp in there. Like, hey, can we have that? Technically, that's what the linked notes do automatically. So it actually puts a time and date stamp and who made the linked note in there. And you can make as many linked notes into an activity as you want. And it's going to actually put them in order. And I can report on those again individually. So even if I did just reach out and called and left a message, I can add a linked note to that activity. And it's going to say exactly when I did that.
Yep, so it's timestamping it each time I enter that note. And then once we're finished, we'll go ahead and hit the save and complete option, and that's going to close down that client review. Now, in this case, we're a little bit ahead of the game. So that client review reminder is still going to show as April 14th until, of course, we get to April 14th, in which case it's going to roll over to the next occurrence.
Yep.
So important to know that we don't complete reviews. They kind of just stay as is, but once it hits that date, it's going to go ahead and roll over to the next one. Now, of course, if we need to, we could always adjust this too. So for example, here, if we need to meet with Andy in a month rather than waiting for whatever time period that we have set up for him, then we can go ahead and edit that first review date and make the changes just like we did before. All right. So another side of client reviews is patching up the cracks, because it's kind of inevitable that you're going to have instances where clients are just going to fall through the cracks, whether they're not replying back to you when you're reaching out to schedule, or, just whatever reason, right? Maybe they rescheduled their appointment and they never came in, or it got canceled and never rescheduled again. There's going to be instances where, again, clients are going to fall through the cracks. So let me show you how we can actually patch up those cracks with, again, my favorite report in Redtail, which is the no contact report. So let's slide on over back to Redtail here. And we're going to go again to that reports tab here on the left-hand side. We are going to go ahead and scroll on down to the third option here, which is contact reports, and choose that no contact report again.
Now, Austin, I'm going to sidetrack real fast here because you mentioned the no contact report is one of your favorite reports. And I'm not sure if everyone really realizes what all those stars are on the reports page. So real fast, if you don't mind clicking on reports again, you'll notice up at the top here in the favorites, if you click on any of those stars, so it's solid, that report is going to show up at the top. And this is user specific. So if you star something, it's not going to start for somebody else. So if you find yourself saying, this is one of my favorite reports, do what Austin did, mark it as a favorite so it's up at the top.
That way you don't have to scroll down to find it, right? It's always going to appear front and center. All right, so I'll choose the no contact report here. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to search for, just remember earlier, we searched for prospects who it's been a while since we last contacted them. In this case, we're going to search for clients, and we're going to get real specific. We're going to indicate whether or not we've entered a note in for their contact record about a client review. So again, we choose this filter option here. We go ahead and choose how far in the future we want to look, or excuse me, in the past that we want to look. So in this case, I'm going to choose 365 days because I want to meet with my clients at least once a year. I'll choose contact status equal to active client. We'll go ahead and narrow it down. I'm just going to look at for just my clients. So I just want to find the ones that are assigned to Tucker. And I'm going to search for no notes entered in for client review notes, client review notes. So let me explain to you what these filters indicate, okay? So we're looking a year in the past. We're looking just at the clients that belong to Tucker and don't have any client review notes entered in within the last year. And then of course I can narrow it down by head of households too. And so we apply these filters and Redtail is going to give us some information, okay? And that information is going to be who doesn't have a client review note entered in. Now this could mean one of two things. Either A, we didn't get the client review scheduled, or B, we got the client review scheduled, but we never entered in the notes. And again, we all know on this presentation here that if it's not in Redtail, it didn't happen. So if there's not a note to indicate it, it's almost as if the client review didn't even happen.
Yeah. Now, also on top of that, this is if we are using linked notes or adding a note directly to the contact record. If you don't do that, which is definitely fine, if you just add it to the description field and are actually just completing the activity, you can actually still use this report, but in the filter, instead of no notes, you can change it over to no completed activities. And then I would just say use the activity type of client review. So, because we actually have, was the activity a client review or not? Same thing here. Were they scheduled and was the activity completed? So you can do the same thing, whether you're marking it with notes or with just completed activities or a combination of both. I love that you have that option.
Okay, so Redtail is searching through all of those previously completed activities, looking at each of those contact records, and it's going to find the ones that don't have a client review completed, and it's going to pull back our results. And then once we have these results, what we're going to do next is we're actually going to take the results of this page here, and we're going to apply those back into that same client review process. So whether that's a tag group, like I taught you, or whether that's creating activities to schedule another client review, like Curtis mentioned, we're going to be able to take those contacts and send them to either of those two places.
Awesome. I think this might be just caught up with us changing the filters a few times. Let's go ahead and just refresh this page and rerun it.
Sounds good. Refresh the page here. Let's change my filters around. Actually, you know, I'm going to navigate away and come back to this. So again, reports, it's one of my favorite reports here for no contact. And we'll go ahead and set our filters one more time. 365 days, active clients, Tucker's clients. And we're going to narrow down, I'm going to use notes. So notes for client review notes. Okay, and we'll go ahead and apply those filters.
Yeah, honestly, like the no contact report, in my opinion, like Austin, I can't push it enough how great it is to, it's essentially, who did we miss? Who did we let fall through the cracks? Technically, if you are staying proactive with your activities, like, hey, I'm always looking ahead to schedule them. If I have everybody marked with proper status and category, and I'm narrowing it down to those people, I'm never going to have to really worry about this. But this is the, hey, just in case, did somebody happen to miss and fall through my process? It can happen, things happen, but even if you have it set, this is a great place to check and just make sure that everybody got what they needed.
Yep. All right, so let's go ahead and send this to search here. And then again, once we arrive at the search page here, we can go ahead and again, either use my method to add them to a tag group or use Curtis's method to add it to an activity. All right, so that's patching up the cracks. Remember, guys, if it's not in Redtail, it didn't happen. So be sure to enter in those client review notes after you finish or complete that activity. Curtis, I'm going to kind of change the pace here. We're going to talk a little bit about UDFs. I know we covered them in the last section, but I want to kind of show how these can actually be incorporated into our ongoing client management. So I'm going to ask a question to the audience, and I want to know, what are some things that your office does that makes your clients feel special or recognized before, during, or after a client review? So everybody go ahead and open up that chat and let us know, what are some of your strategies you'd like to share with the audience today about something that your office specifically does that just makes a client feel recognized? I'll give you an example here. Here is recognizing their pet's name, right? I have a a very adorable golden retriever here. And when people come up and ask me about Daisy, it makes me feel special. It makes me realize that, hey, they actually care enough to learn not only my name and what makes me important, but also something that's also important to me, and that's my dog.
See, that's the difference between me and you, Austin, because if I feel someone who I see maybe once or twice a year is like, hey, how's your horse Cassie? I would look and be like, why do you know that? We're just different people.
Well, we got some instances in here. So Heather says they make sure that they have their favorite drinks and snacks on hands. They always ask about their fur babies. Justin has drinks ready for them to go with their client review and also sends them a thank you card after they finish. Sally sends a formatted summary of the meeting and highlights the important parts of the question. Lindsay, I like that one. Music preference, understanding what kind of music they like.
I was just reading over that one too, and honestly, I've never heard that before, and I'm thinking about it, and most offices are going to have some sort of music probably playing in the background in the waiting room. I honestly would love if I walked into an office and it's like, oh my goodness, like, I love this music. This is great. You don't have to tell them that, hey, we specifically turned on this music for you. It can be like, oh, you mentioned it one time that you like this and we had them playing. I know it sounds a little Big Brother almost, but it's like, use it to your advantage. Yeah. If I walk in and there's a song, a band, or somebody I like it changes your mood. Music changes your mood on a regular basis, and use that to your advantage.
Yeah, I think that's actually going to serve as a really cool example on a UDF that we can make and apply to a contact record. So let's run through it one more time just so we can really bring home how to use user-defined fields in Redtail. So again, I'm going to slide over to my database. And step number one, of course, is going to be creating the user-defined field in the database. And to do that, we're going to hover over to our name. We're going to choose the Manage Your Account section. And we're going to come on down to Manage Database Lists. On our Manage Database List, there's actually two types of user-defined fields. One's for accounts, one's for contacts. We're going to focus in on this contact one here for user-defined fields. And let's go ahead and add in a field here for music preference. The music preference. Okay. Now, if we want to, we can go ahead and enter in an any text field here. I think it's probably more appropriate here, Curtis, to do maybe a list of values, right? We only have so many different types of music that we might have on hand to play. And so let's go ahead and add in some of our different values. So help me out in the chat here, guys. What are some different types of music that you would play as kind of background music with your office? I'm thinking probably something like soft rock, maybe.
Heavy metal is definitely an option.
Heavy metal, definitely got to throw that one in there.
We got jazz. Honestly, like country music.
Country, yep, that's a good one.
Now, here's the thing. My parents, for some reason, like hated country music when I was growing up. And they would, like, if they heard country music, I don't know why it bothered them. I like country music. Maybe even put in an option of no country music. So when they come in, if they don't like hearing it or they don't like hearing a certain type of music, you can do the opposite here. You can do it either way. Ooh, yacht rock. I love that station.
Anything but country. Good. Yeah. How about holiday music or no holiday music, right?
One of our I forget her job title. She used to be a product owner, but she works with the dev team, and she would listen. Tara would listen to Christmas music all year round if she could. She's fine with it. I think it's a little weird, but hey, if they want to hear Christmas music and they walk in and they love it, who cares if it's June?
I don't see any love for music, movie soundtracks and scores.
Soundtracks. That Rick's Spotify playlist is just all movie soundtracks. Like,
that's true.
But the goal here is now, keep in mind, like, we're adding in these drop downs. So this is if you decide there's only certain list, you can always go in and add to it if somebody adds something. But the option is you can put whatever you want.
Mm-hmm. So let's go ahead and add the user-defined field into the database. And then when we're ready to go ahead and apply that to our contact records. So let's go to Al again. And knowing what you know about Al, Curtis, what do you think his favorite type of music would be?
Oh, that's a great question. Probably, I'm going to say jazz.
Jazz?
I would have said bluegrass, but I could see Al being a jazz guy.
I feel like he probably plays the tenor sax and like plays along to his jazz records. I think it's a thing.
Well, we don't have any jazz playlists, so I think I'm going to go with a soft
Soft rock.
rock here. Yeah.
Did we not add in yacht rock? Because yacht rock is so much better.
Yacht rock. We can go back and change it. That's the cool part about user-defined fields, right? We could always be updating and adjusting it. You know, now that we're actually talking about it, I think this probably works better as a text field, right? Because there's just so many different types of music that we could put. So let's add that user-defined field. And again, this just becomes something that we can do for our clients during the client review process or ongoing client management to make them feel recognized, to make them feel special, similar to how we did with their lemon zest espresso.
And I think that's such a great point, Austin, is, hey, we are being weird and talking about music preference. And this is such a specific example, but keep in mind, this is about your client, how you can continue to keep like a personal relationship with them in little ways that you can mark in your CRM. So again, this is just, if you happen to offer something like coffee or playing certain music, you can actually put that in. And it's building that client relationship even further. They're on that wheel. If we're circling around and around, it gets boring. But how can I make sure that, hey, I know that these people are here to support me, because when I walk in, they start playing yacht rock. Love it.
I love it. I'll have to give yacht rock a listen. I've never experienced yacht rock. I'll have to.
I mean, at that point, you can get crazy and say, okay, hey, we're going to schedule client reviews, but like this week, we're only scheduling people who like country music. And next week, we're going to only schedule people who like yacht rock. Like, you can get specific so you don't have two people one who loves country music and one who doesn't, come into the office at the same time, and then havoc breaks loose.
Yeah, we definitely don't want showdowns happening in the waiting room. All right, let's slide back. Another thing that we can do to kind of recognize and make our clients feel special as far as ongoing client management goes is recognizing their birthdays. And Curtis, you and I, we work with a lot of different offices, and we know that people have different ways of managing birthdays, right? Some of them, they're really particular. They want it day of, right? I want to send that email. I want to make that call on their actual birthday. But for some of us, we got some big offices, lots of clients. It comes a little bit more challenging. So we might use a weekly or a monthly. So participants, go to the chat. Let us know. What do you guys do? Do you do it the day of the birthday? Maybe you just do their birthday week, or you a little bit more bigger picture and break it down month by month?
I like my birthday to be celebrated all month long. So if I'm not getting a call from somebody telling me happy birthday every single day, is it worth it?
Yeah. we were just so you guys know, I think it's the third week of October. That's your birthday week, right, Curtis?
Pretty much. Well,
Yeah,
mine
the whole
and
week.
Catherine's. Remember, our birthdays are just one.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, I was
That's
gonna be
right.
like, no, you got to share one day, just
We
one.
celebrate it together. But she normally gets the first half of the week and I get the second half of the week.
Mhm.
Like that's what we've decided.
Yeah, so I'm seeing a good mix here. Susan and Sarah do monthly. Jennifer likes to do a phone call the day of. Jenna sends a card the week before, and then a text and email the day of. So again, lots of different ways to go ahead and celebrate birthdays. So let's explore the different options and places we can go inside Redtail to explore those birthdays. So here we go. Let's go here, and I'm actually going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to set today's date as Al's birthday. So I'm going to adjust his birthday here to March. What's today? The 25th? 25th, yes.
Yes. You're just changing people's birthdays.
Well, for examples, we're trying to do this. So it just sets it back 6 months in time. And so if we're reporting on a daily basis, we're going to use our today page, okay? And so we can see, because Al's birthday is today, as well as some other members of our client base, it's going to show us on today's birthdays whose birthday it is and how old they're turning.
Okay.
We can also come up here to the
real
reminders. Sorry,
real
go ahead.
fast. Actually, I wanna talk about that section real fast. Let's pick on. I don't want to pick on Al. Click on Sally's birthday. Now, this list, it pulls based off of the birthday, but also based off of the client review reminder. So for some reason, Sally said, hey, I don't celebrate my birthday. Don't call me. Don't tell me anything about it. If you go into contact details and uncheck the birthday reminder, so enable date of birth reminder, now let's go back, after we update that, let's go back to the today page. I just want to show that you can actually take people off that who it's her birthday still, but we're not calling her because she didn't want it.
Yeah.
So you still have control over that.
Yeah, not everybody likes to have recognized that they're now another year older. So of course, if you have instances like that, use that checkbox to turn it on and off.
Yeah.
All right, for weekly, so if we do this on a weekly basis, we recommend using the reminder report. And so, oops, sorry about that. Let me slide over here. For weekly reminders, we're going to go to the reports tab here on the left-hand side. We can come on down to the reminders reports. Again, if it's something that we use commonly, we can go ahead and star it. So that way it comes up at the top. And this reminder report allows us to filter for the contacts and how far in advance we want to look. So for example, here, I could set this for 0 days past due, and let's look 7 days in advance. And that's going to show me all of the client birthdays happening in the next 7 days.
And it's a great report because again, you can narrow it down to just like smaller chunks. And even with here, like in the filter, you can say just active clients, or maybe you also call, you know, the dependents of clients or things like that. Maybe you send birthdays for those. You can narrow it down to multiple different contact statuses. It's really dependent on who do you want to reach out to. Yeah,
if you're working in a shared database too, you can narrow it down just to your clients. You don't have to call, you know, another advisor clients. That might get a little awkward. So now, you can
even
narrow
at
it
this
down
point, Austin, like this is also very similar to, now that we know whose birthday it is, we can still use those two different forms of how are we reaching out to them.
Yeah.
So you could send them to the search page in the top right, and then either do Austin's way of adding them to a tag group, or you can do my way of adding an activity saying call to wish a happy birthday.
Yeah,
you can definitely do that either way.
Yeah, I also like to use the broadcast email tool in Redtail as well. So if I want to send an individual email here, I can send an email. Or if I want to do 3 of them at a time, I'll select them here and then use contact options, bulk actions, and we're going to broadcast email. And so I might have a nice little birthday template here that I can go ahead and request out, or I can go ahead and just type out my message as I see fit.
And with broadcast email, keep in mind, this is sending an email all at the same time for these contacts. So it's not going to say, hey, it's sending the email on their birthday. So if you are doing it a week at a time, I would say start out with, hey, it's your birthday week. Happy birthday. Like you can do that every Monday morning. I'm letting everybody for the week sending a birthday email. Definitely up to you, however you want to do that.
Yeah, Justin asked a good question about the birthday report, and he asked, you know, will they still show up on the report if they have the birthday unchecked? No, they won't. So they won't show up on the reminder report if they have the reminder unselected. So only contacts that have the reminder selected will show up on the birthday reminder report.
Now, I actually like the third way of like doing birthdays by the month.
So that would be using the advanced search tool, right, Curtis?
Yes. And this is very similar, almost identical to how we pulled up anybody who had a client review reminder for the month of April. If we want to see anyone who has a birthday in the month of April, we choose contact as the type, DOB month, so date of birth month, equal to, and then we can say April. And then again, the same concept. I can add them to a tag group. I can add an activity to reach out. From here, though, we got 40. Let's narrow that down to active clients.
Yeah.
Let's narrow it down a little more. The other thing, the birthday report is actually a PDF you can run from the search page, which is right now, all of our contacts are listed in alphabetical order. But when you take all 33 of these people who have a birthday in April, and we go to contact options on the right, and then reports, the very first option is going to say birthday report. And this will download a PDF that is actually going to rearrange them, not alphabetically, but put them in birthday order. I actually, and most commonly, I see people do it this way the most. So it's like, hey, once I give them a call, I cross them off. I know a lot of people who like to handwrite birthday cards. This gives you their primary address, their phone number, and they're in order. So if you're going little by little and just marking them off as you go through, it's a great report to have.
Yeah, definitely print it out, maybe put it on your bulletin board or your desk in your office, so that way you have it available. Of course, you can always just log it with CRM and see it there as well.
Thanks so much for joining us today for this particular session. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to give us a call at 800-206-5030, option 3 for support, or just shoot us an email over to support@redtailtechnology.com. Thanks a lot and have a great day.